Well, welcome back to Business 101 Online with Professor Joe Lane. We've done Chapter 12. Seemed like we made it through that chapter pretty well. Now we're getting into Chapter 13 today. But as I mentioned to you before, Chapters 13, 14, 15, and 16 are the marketing chapters. So we are really in marketing, or in Business 201 Principles of Marketing. You'll probably be taking that course with me in the fall or in the spring. So this is kind of an introduction to that particular course. Okay, here's the thing about marketing. There are some classes, or some, I guess I'd call it chapters. Remember the economics chapter? There was a lot of stuff in that chapter that was kind of hard to understand. It was kind of new stuff to us and things like that. This chapter and then these next 4 chapters, they're all chapters that you're already an expert at. And I'm already an expert at as well. Because marketing has to do with businesses have marketers. They're the people that try to take, what do businesses have? Businesses have products. I'm going to call them goods and services. Businesses have goods and services. Okay, if a business produces a bunch of goods and services and puts them in a warehouse, have they made a profit? If they don't sell them, are they going to stay in business? Well, the answer is no. Well, there's a lot of folks within a business, their primary job is to see that products are sold. And so you've got marketers, and these are the people in that business. Now, marketers can do a lot of things. If I mention a marketer having something to do with selling, well, you'd say, well, yeah, salespeople. Well, salespeople are marketers. But people who advertise products, promote products, people that move products from one location to another, all of those people are employees that have something to do with selling goods and services. Now, we don't exactly call it selling, we call it an exchange. What's happening in the world of marketing is that businesses, marketers within those businesses, they are trying to exchange their goods and services for what? Money. They've got the goods and services. You and I and customers have the money. So marketers, the primary purpose of marketing is to exchange goods and services for money. So the question comes up. Raise your hand if you've ever bought anything. Raise your hand if you've ever sold anything. Congratulations, you're an expert in marketing. You've participated in marketing. If you look at my handout, I want to do the definition of marketing. Would you guess that might be maybe even a no in this next test? I think there's a pretty good chance that it could be. Okay, here's marketing. The process of planning and executing the conception, pricing, promotion, and distribution of goods and services to facilitate exchanges that satisfy individual and organizational objectives. What? So wait a minute. That sounded a whole lot more complicated than what you said just a minute ago. Well, yeah, but let's break it down a little bit. Marketing is a process. Now, you know what a process is. That's ongoing. Marketers are continually working in a business to bring about exchanges. That goes on as long as the business goes on. The process of planning and executing the conception, parentheses product. Somebody has to plan and execute, produce the product. So marketing is the process of first planning and executing the concept, the product, then pricing that product, then promoting that product, and then distributing that product to consumers so that you can satisfy consumers and the business itself. So I know I'm beating it to death, but y'all know I do that sometimes. Marketing, the process of planning and executing the conception, the product, pricing that product, promoting that product, distributing that product or goods and services to facilitate, to do it in such a way that you can bring about an exchange that will satisfy the individual and the company. A good no definition right there. Now let's talk a little bit about marketing. I think I'll throw this over here. When was marketing invented? Well, has there always been marketing? Sort of, kind of, but not really. That's a great answer. So let's try it this way. In the early 1900s, it was all about production. Now, those of you, we've already gone through economics, so since you're an economist as well, here's what I'm going to say. In the early 1900s, during the Industrial Revolution here in the United States, when we were becoming a giant industry and industrial nation, we were producing goods and services for the first time. People were able to buy things they'd never been able to buy in mass before. What we had was, we had demand greater than supply. What does that mean? That means when you rolled your product off the assembly line, when you completed that pair of shoes, you completed producing that shirt, you finished producing that piece of agricultural machinery, it was sold. It was sold pretty doggone quick. Wouldn't you love to have a business in 2020 that all you had to do is lay the products out there and people rush in and buy them? It's a little bit different in 2020. Okay, so it was the production era. It was all about the product. You get the product out, you were going to get it sold. Now you can figure if that's true. Do you think businesses got better and better and better at producing their products? Their answer is yes. Do you think as they sold more and more and more and more of that product, it got to where people had that product and it got harder to sell? The answer is yes. So in the 1920s, 1930s, along with that, we were in what was called the selling era. It was all about selling that product. If you look at the handout, production era, selling era. The company is producing their product, they're producing their product fast. So you're a salesperson. Hey, would you like to buy my product? Oh, you already have one? Would you like to buy another? You've got two? How about three? It was all about sell, promote, sell, sell. Sell my product. Promote my product. And I come home and, I'm worn out. I've worked all day. I've been trying to sell the product. I've sold two, and they've produced four more for me to sell. So it was tough because at this particular time, supply was greater than demand. So about 1950, some poor, worn-out salesperson came home, plopped themselves in the easy chair, and said, "Man, this selling is killing me. It's sell, sell, sell every day, and people have my product, and every time I sell one, two more has been produced. I wish somebody would ask the customer what they want." Whoa, that's a good idea. So we got to what was called the marketing concept era. Marketing was born because in the past, what we had was this. It was all about the product. It was all about selling, but it wasn't about the customer. In around 1950, for the first time, they started with the customer. What would the customer want? And let's produce what the customer wants. If we produce what they want, they'll buy it. So this is when we first started talking about the idea that the customer rules. Start with the customer first. Makes a lot of good sense. Now here's what they're saying with the marketing concept era. What you want to do is always keep in mind the customer. What you do in your company and how the decisions you make should be in line with what's going to help you sell that product to the customer. The second thing is make sure that you provide the service to go along with that if there's a need for it. Make sure everybody in your company understands the importance of the customer. And do all that while making a profit. That's the marketing concept era. All right. Then we come to 2000. But this is I guess I better get my red marker here and put 2 stars. Because this is a big deal. This is when marketing was kind of born. When we first started talking about the customer. Okay. Then around 2000, you came up with what was called the customer relationship era. What's better than selling me something once? And I know some of our classes have already gone through this chapter, and I understand that. Sell me something twice. Sell me something 3 times. Instead of me coming in one time and buying something from you, what if I become a regular customer? What if you build a relationship with me? Is that even better? There are some of you that probably go certain places to buy certain things. They have built a relationship. There's probably a certain place you go to have your hair done. There may be a certain place you go to take your automobile. There may be a certain place that you go to buy this particular thing or that particular thing. You've built a relationship. So what I like to say about the customer relationship era, it's really the marketing concept era on steroids. It's the marketing concept, yes, but it's adding to the marketing concept, not just pleasing the customer once, but building a relationship with that customer. So that's the 4 eras of marketing. That's probably going to be a no as well. That's pretty important stuff. We call it here on the handout the evolution of marketing. Okay. I will only take a moment to do this and not drag this out. 2 of the classes have already, I think, seen this little presentation we are doing on Chapter 13. But remember, and if you haven't seen this for the first time, I would ask you, what is that? And I get all a briefcase. I had somebody tell me it looked like an iron. Well, what it really is, because you remember I'm a pretty renowned artist. I'm kind of a, what do you call those artists? The abstract art. I'm kind of abstract art. This is a toolbox. And we talked about, if you're a carpenter, what do you have to have in your toolbox? And we talked, well, you've got to have a hammer, you've got to have a saw, if you have a hammer, you've got to have some nails, you've got to have a screwdriver, you've got to have a tape measure. And we went through and said these are the things that carpenters have to be able to do their work. They're skilled as carpenters, they've got to have certain tools. And then we backed that up and said, okay, if that's the case, what tools do marketers, this marketer right here, these people that are primarily, what they do for a company, they're primarily involved in some phase of bringing about an exchange of their goods and services with the consumer for money. So what tools do they have to have? What are the things that they need? Well, the most important thing they have to have before anything else, they got to have a product. You can't bring about an exchange if you ain't got nothing to exchange. So in the toolbox, we will put product. Now, the medium of exchange in the United States is the dollar. We express the value of stuff in dollar terms. That vehicle is worth so many dollars. This dry erase expo marker is worth so many dollars. And so, since goods and services are expressed in terms of a dollar, you've got to put a price on that product. Thirdly, if you want your customers or potential customers to buy it, you've got to put it where they can get to it. So you've got to make sure that you place that product correctly. And nobody knows about your product. They're not going to buy it. You got to make sure you advertise your product. But there's different ways to do that, so you have to promote your product. That's known as the marketing mix of the 4 P's of marketing. Another no, by the way. Wow. Well, remember, we got 4 chapters here in marketing, so you can just about figure chapter 13, the first chapter, is going to have several no things. Know the definition of marketing, know the 4 eras of marketing, and know the marketing mix or the 4 P's of marketing. So I'm going to throw these down here because this is about the only place I have any space. What marketers have to work with is their product, their price, the placement, and promotion. And if you look at your handout, your study guide, matter of fact, these are pretty valuable. If you want to go ahead and send in a check for these, or I'd really prefer to take cash to my home address, that would be fine. If you look at this handout, the marketing environment, I threw it over here on the left-hand side. Let me just cover real quick what that is. Are there some things in your life that you have control over? The answer is yeah. I have control over what I'm going to do each day. I have control over my children, if I have children, perhaps. I've got control over this. I have control over what I'm going to wear. I have control over whether I'm going to study or not. There's certain things we have control over. Marketers have control over certain things. Their product, how it's priced, where it's placed, and how it's promoted. There are other things that marketers have no control over whatsoever. And yet they have to adjust to those. Let me give you some examples of things that marketers have no control over. They have no control over our economy. They have no control over the political environment. They have no control over the legal environment. They have no control over the changing technology. They have no control over the weather. And if I want to bring this up to March of 2020, they have no control over the coronavirus and how it's going to affect them as marketers, how it's affecting us every day. So there's just a lot of things that marketers don't have any control over. So remember, marketers, just like us, they have a lot of things in their environment that they have no control over. And speaking of coronavirus and economy, our economy is getting worse each day. Is that going to affect marketers? For the most part, the answer is yes, and for most of them, it's going to affect them negatively. Now, if you're selling toilet paper in March of 2020, you can't produce enough. It's a boom. But I think that's going to probably level off one of these days soon, I hope. So, by the way, if you don't have any toilet paper, I hope you get that soon. All right. So there's 4 things that marketers have control over. These 4 things right here. And the things they don't have control over, do they pay attention to them? Yes. Do they make sure what's going on to understand them? Yes. That's called environmental scanning. Make sure you pay attention to what's going on, but you understand there's certain things you can't control, and you have to roll with those things, but there are things that you can control. Okay. Marketers want to know as much about us as possible. The more they learn about us, the better job they can bring about an exchange. They do a lot of research, what's called marketing research. Now that doesn't mean that all marketing research that they do is towards customers or potential customers, but a lot of their research has to do with customers. But they're researching all kinds of things. Would my product sell better if I offered it in a red color as well as blue and white? Would my product sell better maybe if I added, I'm selling chainsaws. What if I added a couple new models? Might that help? So they're always researching different things to find out how can they better bring about an exchange. Okay, marketers have to make good decisions. You make poor decisions about these 4 things and you're not going to have an exchange. Every step in the marketing process depends on accurate information to make good decisions or make the right decisions. You've got to have good information to make good decisions as it relates to those things you can control. That's what it's saying. All right. So let's look at the definition of marketing research. The analysis of markets. These are markets. We are markets. The analysis of markets to determine opportunities and challenges and find information to make good decisions. Hey, here's the market. There's some challenges out there in the market. There's some opportunities out there in the market. We've got to do some research to make the best decisions that we can about our product. Maybe as it relates to our competition, something like that. I don't know if I mentioned competitions a few minutes ago, but that's one of those uncontrollable things in a company's environment, is their competition. But we've got to make good decisions to be able to do the very best job that we can do about bringing about an exchange. Okay, how does marketing research work? Number one, you define the question. What is it I want to know? If I put out 2 new models of my product, would that increase my sales? If I put out 2 new models, this model that specifically does this model that specifically does that, will that increase my sales? What you've got to do first of all is define the question. What is it you want to know? Hey, gasoline is going down really fast. We all notice this. If gasoline goes down to less than $1.25 a gallon, will it affect my sales? That would be marketing research. You know, so you can research anything you want to, but what you're trying to do is you're trying to determine what question do I need answered to help me bring about an exchange. Number 2, if I've decided what it is I need to know, collect data. Now there's 2 types of data. There's primary data, I put that on your handout, and secondary data. Primary data is data that you collect yourself. If you collect primary data, the best thing about it is you know it's right and you know it's what you want. The downside of primary data is it's expensive and it takes time. Secondary data is data that somebody else has collected that you can use. You say, you know what? I can use that data. The best thing about secondary data is it's already available to you and it costs you little or nothing. The downside is, does it exactly fit what you want or not, and is it accurate? So what's normally is going to happen, businesses are going to collect some primary and they're going to select some secondary data as well. Once you get your data, analyze it. My data say, it's very important that you analyze your data carefully and correctly. Number 4, choose and implement. Based upon the data that I have, the accurate data that I've gotten, and the data that I have analyzed concerning this question, I now know the answer to that question, so I am now going to do thus and such, or not do thus and such, that'll help me bring about an exchange. That's how marketing research is used. One other thing, I think I've got room, I think I'll put it right over here. You know how I am about terminology. If you learn certain terms, you also can learn what that term means, and it kind of enhances your knowledge. So I'm going to go through these relatively quickly for you. What is the market? Most companies do not try to sell to the entire market. They segment the market. And again, a couple of us have already been through this, and you've heard this before. If you have not, we'll do it right now. Market segmentation. That's the second step. Third step, target market. And then you can go so far as to have a niche market. Now, what am I talking about? In the world of marketing, these are important things that we have to know. Oh, I looked at something else here that I just happened to see. I threw out here B2B marketing. What do you think B2B marketing is? I can just hear you in the background saying business to business. Some companies market directly not to people or individuals, they market to other companies. That's called business to business marketing. Now, almost everything we're doing in these chapters, we're going to be talking about what they call consumer marketing. That's marketing to individuals like you and I. But I would be at least familiar with what B2B or business to business marketing is. As a matter of fact, I guess this would be a good place for me to pause. So far, we've said we need to know the definition of marketing. We need to know the 4 eras of marketing. And we need to know the marketing mix, or the 4 Ps. I would certainly be familiar with what marketing research is. I'd be familiar with the marketing research process, defining the problem, gathering or collecting data, that sort of thing. And I'd be familiar with what B2B marketing it is, and I'd be familiar with what we meant when I was talking about the environment that marketing comes in. That marketers have to operate within an environment of much of which they have no control. And lastly, the things that we're talking about right over here, these would be things that would be good to be familiar with as well. Okay, let me put a boundary around this so they all look alike. What is the market? The market is all actual or potential customers. When you think of the market, you've got to think big. What are all the customers? What could be all my actual or potential customers? So I put it on your handout. I'll put it over here. Actual, potential customers. Okay. The example I used in class, what is the market for hairspray? The market for hairspray, anybody that has hair long enough to style. That's the market. Now you may be saying, everybody doesn't use hairspray. I know that. But the market is everybody that potentially could use hairspray or does use hairspray to style their hair. The other example that I used, or I guess a couple, what is the market for wristwatches? People that have wrist. That's what a wristwatch is for. Now again, you're going to say, I don't wear a wristwatch. I don't know anybody that wears a wristwatch. I didn't say that. I said, what is the market? The market is all the actual or potential customers. Wrist. What is the market for a duck call? I'll pretend this is now my duck call. The market for a duck call is everybody that can do this. If you can go, that means you could blow a duck call and make noise with it. All right. Most companies, are they going to try to bring about an exchange with the total market? Oh no. I mean, is Duck Dynasty, Duck Commander, are they going to try to sell duck calls to everybody that can go? Oh no. I mean, what are there, 330 million people in America? So you got almost 330 million people that can do that. But that's not, everybody's not going to want a duck call. And businesses know that. So what are they going to do? We'll talk about that in a minute. Wristwatches. Everybody in America that has a wrist going to want a wristwatch? No. Are the majority of the people in America that have a wristwatch going to want a wristwatch? No. So we got to think about that. Hairspray. Does everybody in America that has hair long enough to style or to spray, are they all going to use hairspray? The answer is no. But now on the other side, the example I used in class, there are some products that the company can almost market to everybody. And the example I used in class was, and as you watch this video, what's the chances that you brushed your teeth today? I hope it's really, really good, okay? All right. And that's true for most people. They're going to brush their teeth. So that means they're going to use toothpaste probably, and they're going to have a toothbrush. So if you're a Procter & Gamble company and you manufacture toothpaste and toothbrushes, are you going to be able to market to a really broad market? Because whereas there's not very many people, maybe of the 330 million that's going to wear a wristwatch, the vast majority of those 330 million, now maybe the little bitty babies aren't, but the vast majority of that 330 million, they're going to brush their teeth. Okay? So you may market to a very broad market. But for the most part, for most products, you are not going to be able to market to everybody. So you want to break that market down. You want to segment that market into different segments and then pick the segments that are most likely to buy your product. So you can break down the market any way you want to. Segmenting is simply, did I put it on your handout for you? So dividing into similar groups. You may want to break down the market by education. You may want to break down the market by income. You may want to break down the market by sex. You may want to break down the market by race. Say, wait a minute, are you being discriminatory? No. This has nothing to do with discrimination. It has to do with you're trying to find who wants your product. Okay? You could break down the market by geographic location. You could break down the market by male, female. You can break down the market any way you want to try to look at how do we say it here? Try to look at similar groups. So you want to break out similar groups and everything, and then when you break those different similar groups out, which ones of those similar groups, or which ones of those groups would be most likely to buy your product? Those would be your target markets. These are the markets that we're going to target. Unlike Procter & Gamble, who doesn't do much marketing segmentation, they pretty much go with everybody because everybody brushes their teeth, almost. All right. Most companies, though, market segmentation. So you break down the market. Now, let's go back to this duck call. We're past the crazy days of Duck Dynasty when everybody's brother wanted a duck call. We're back now to duck calls are usually used by people that have a hunt. All right, so we're going to segment the market. All right, let's look at education. Does education have much to do with whether you're going to hunt ducks or not? Answer is no. Income? I'm going to say probably not. And here's why. If you're an avid, crazy duck hunter, you'll give up a couple of meals to buy you a duck call because you got to have one. Sex, okay, there's more male duck hunters than there are female, by far. Now, does that mean that I'm against female duck hunters? No, I'm just saying, statistically speaking, a whole lot more male than female duck hunters. So I may want to break down this way. I may want to target males, okay? Race, we may look and see what races tend to hunt ducks more. We may take a look at that. That can be a possibility. Ooh, here's one for sure. Geographic location. Ducks ain't everywhere. I think there's 4 flyways in the United States, and the biggest flyway with the most ducks is what's called the Mississippi Flyway. And so I'm certainly going to break down my segmentation geographically. I'm going to break it down by probably males. I may break it down by, I could go with maybe hunters. You see what I'm trying to do here? I'm trying to segment the market so that I target particular, so my targets may be males, hunters, in the different flyways. So there's East Coast, whatever. This may be the Mississippi Flyway right here. This is the one, closest to where we live. All right. So that's how you would segment to break down. Now let me go to a product that most are familiar with, Budweiser. That's a beer, by the way, in case you didn't know. What are the 2 target markets for Budweiser? Again, if you've already done this chapter with me, you know. The 2 target markets for Budweiser are college-age students and what I'll call blue-collar working type people that work, people that like pro football, they like NASCAR, they like to hard day's work, come back, prop up, have a beer. Now, does that mean that I could not buy a Budweiser? No. Does that mean a lady couldn't buy a Budweiser? Of course, colleges both. But what I'm saying is this. That doesn't mean that if you don't fall in one of these two target groups that they're not going to sell you a Budweiser. But it means these are the two target groups that they're going to concentrate on because they feel like this is the two major groups that buy their product. That makes sense. Okay. Now this, I'm doing beer and I'm doing duck calls here. I'm doing different things, but you understand most companies segment. You say, well, why? Why shouldn't the company just go ahead? You don't have to segment. Every company can go for the entire market because what the heck? Everybody's got a risk. Go for it. Well, you can't do that. Companies can't produce 330 million wristwatches. Companies can't place 330 million wristwatches all over America and promote all the different ways you'd have to promote to all the different people in America because the majority of that would go wasted because those people wouldn't be interested in wristwatches. So you don't have the time, you don't have the resources, you don't have the money. Unless you're a Procter & Gamble who's doing toothpaste and toothbrushes, you want to segment to that market that is most likely to segment to those markets that's most likely to buy your product and target those markets. Make sure you place your product in the areas where they are. Make sure you promote to your target markets. That's why the Super Bowl, Budweiser spends $40 million on Super Bowl ads because that's their target market they're trying to reach. And so you target to find those, and then you use the 4 Ps best as it relates to your target market. One last thing, a niche market. Sometimes if a company has several target markets, but they have one market that they're going to go after even stronger than the others. Hey, I got 3 target markets, but there's one I'm really going after. So let's go back to our duck calls. The Mississippi Flyway is the most popular flyway. So I'm going to concentrate the sale of my duck calls in the Mississippi. That's going to be my niche. My niche is going to be the Mississippi Flyway. I'm going to also target the others, but I'm really going to go with this one. Okay. And again, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, these will all be familiar with things as well. Okay, that kind of gets us started in marketing, Business 201, Chapter 13. Marketing is all about an exchange. Exchanging goods and services that companies have for money that customers or consumers have to bring about that exchange. They use marketing research. They use the 4 Ps to bring that about. As I mentioned, we're all experts in this because we do this all the time. So that's Chapter 13. We're going to come back here in just a little bit. Well, I'm going to do Chapter 14 with you where we get even deeper into what marketing is all about. And as I mentioned to you, one of the things that my boss, Professor Ryan Pierce, has said is, Professor Lane, when you're videoing these, because these will probably go worldwide. I'll probably be internationally famous before long for having done these. But he said, make sure that we have a clear break. And between one chapter and another. And one way we can have a clear break is if he gets a spike in noise. So I am getting ready to have a clear break. I'm getting ready to end Chapter 13. I'll come back and do Chapter 14 before long. Thank you. Spike noise. See you in Chapter 14.